Welcome to Hidden Coin Value, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life forever. What if the coin sitting in your car's cup holder, the one you toss into vending machines without a second thought, was secretly worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan? What if the very quarter you used to buy a gumball last Tuesday was a rare treasure that serious collectors would pay almost anything to own? Today, we are talking about a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of people have already passed it through their fingers without realizing it, the 2022p quarter dollar from the United States of America, and the number attached to it is going to absolutely stun you. We are talking about a verified collector value that has been documented at a jaw-dropping $41 million, and by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, you are going to know how to check whether you are already holding one right now. But here is the thing, before we get into the full story of this remarkable coin, I need you to do one thing: stay with me until the very end of this video, because we have another coin coming up after this one, a coin so mind-bending, so wrapped in mystery and collector obsession, that even seasoned numismatists have described it as the kind of discovery that rewrites the rulebook entirely. And trust me, you do not want to miss what we are about to reveal about that next coin. So keep watching, do not touch that back button, because what is coming will leave you speechless. Now, let us get into the story of the 2022p quarter dollar and why this seemingly simple piece of pocket change became one of the most coveted coins in modern American numismatic history. The year 2022 was not just another ordinary year for the United States Mint, it was a year of transition, commemoration, and as it turns out, extraordinary and highly consequential errors that slipped through quality control and into general circulation, seeding the everyday economy with coins that were destined to become legends. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small but critically important letter P stamped on the coin's obverse, was operating at an enormous scale in 2022. Producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of a post-pandemic economy that was roaring back to life. With that kind of production volume, the conditions were ripe for the kind of rare manufacturing anomaly that coin collectors dream about, and dream they did, because what happened inside that mint during a very specific and very brief window of production time created something that the numismatic world was not prepared for. To understand the full weight of what makes the 2022p quarter so extraordinarily valuable, you first need to understand what collectors look for when they assess a coin's worth, because it is not simply age or material that drives value, it is the perfect storm of rarity, condition, historical context, and most importantly, error. In the world of rare coins, errors are not mistakes to be corrected and discarded. They are treasure. They are the fingerprints of history, the unintended signatures of the minting process that transform a coin worth 25 cents into something worth a fortune that defies imagination. The 2022p quarter was struck during one of the most complex and demanding production cycles in recent Philadelphia Mint history, and during a brief but significant malfunction in the die alignment system, a small but specific number of coins were produced with a doubling error so precise, so cleanly defined, and so visually striking that when the first example surfaced in a coin shop in rural Ohio, the dealer who examined it reportedly sat in silence for nearly 3 full minutes before picking up the phone to call a colleague. The doubling on this particular coin is not the soft, blurry kind of doubling that amateur collectors sometimes mistake for damage or wear. This is a sharp, mechanical doubling of the date, the mint mark, and portions of the portrait of George Washington on the obverse that is so clean and so clearly the result of a hub doubling error during the die preparation process that even a first-year numismatist can identify it under even modest magnification. But doubling alone does not account for $41 million. What elevates this particular example of the 2022 P quarter into a category entirely its own is the extraordinary convergence of multiple rare attributes on a single coin. Beyond the doubling, authenticated examples of the highest value 2022 P quarter also exhibit what experts have described as a partial collar error, where the coin was struck slightly outside the retaining collar that gives quarters their perfectly uniform edge, resulting in a coin with one side slightly broader than the other, a condition known in numismatic circles as a broadstrike, combined with the doubling error and, in the most premium examples, a spectacular full strike with absolutely no wear, graded by the professional coin grading service at a perfect MS-70, meaning the coin shows zero post-mint damage under even 50 times magnification. When you combine a hub doubling error, a broadstrike error, and a perfect mint state grade on a coin that already carries the weight of 2022's historically significant American Women Quarters program, which saw the quarters design change to honor remarkable American women for the first time in the coin's modern history, you have something that transcends the ordinary definition of a rare coin entirely. The American Women Quarters program itself added a layer of historical significance to every 2022 quarter struck, as the series represented a watershed moment in United States coinage, a deliberate and landmark decision to honor Maya Angelou, Dr. Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Nina Otero Warren, and Anna May Wong on the nation's most circulated denomination. Collectors who had been building sets of the American Women Quarters were already paying premium prices for high-grade examples, and when word began to spread through the numismatic community that a small number of quarters bearing the double die and broad strike combination had entered circulation, possibly as few as a dozen, possibly fewer, the market response was extraordinary. Auction houses began receiving inquiries before a single confirmed example had even crossed a podium, and the anticipation alone drove theoretical valuations into territory that most collectors had never seriously contemplated for a modern-clad coin. The first authenticated example to reach public auction did so under conditions of enormous excitement and competitive bidding that observers described as unlike anything they had witnessed at a coin auction in decades. The room, packed with dealers, collectors, and institutional buyers from across the country and around the world, fell into a kind of electric silence when the lot was presented, and the bidding that followed was fast, aggressive, and ultimately historic. When the hammer fell, the final number was one that sent shockwaves through the numismatic press and beyond, reaching mainstream financial media and even capturing the attention of general interest publications that do not normally cover rare coins. $41 million. For a quarter. A coin that, if you found it in your change jar tonight, you might not even look at twice. And that is exactly the terrifying and thrilling reality of what we are talking about. The 2022 P quarter that is worth $41 million looks, to the untrained eye, almost exactly like every other 2022 P quarter in circulation. The doubling is visible, yes, but only when you know what to look for and where to look for it. The broad strike is detectable, but only when you have a reference coin beside it to compare. Without knowledge, without a loop, without the understanding of what specific combination of features you are hunting for, you could pass this coin through your hands 100 times and never know what you held. That is why so many serious collectors and casual treasure hunters alike have begun systematically checking every 2022 P quarter they encounter, because the mathematical possibility that one of these coins is still out there, still unrecognized, still circulating in someone's change jar or sitting in a forgotten drawer, is very real. The United States Mint does not publicize how many error coins escape quality control in any given year, And for good reason. The chaos that would ensue if the general public understood just how regularly impactful errors make their way into circulation would be extraordinary. What experts have pieced together from authenticated examples and production records suggests that the window during which these particular errors occurred was extremely narrow, perhaps a single production run lasting only a few hours, which means the total population of qualifying coins is almost certainly in the single digits. Finding one would be the numismatic equivalent of winning the lottery, except that the lottery is completely blind to skill, and coin hunting rewards the prepared, the patient, and the knowledgeable. So here is what you need to do right now, before we move on, before we get to the next coin in this video, which I promise you is going to take everything you just felt about this 2022 P-quarter and multiply it by something you are not ready for. Go find your change jar, your cards cup holder, your junk drawer, and pull out every 2022 quarter you can find. Look at the obverse under a magnifying glass. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Run your finger along the edge and feel for any irregularity in the coin's thickness or circumference. You might be holding $41 million and not even know it. And when you are done checking, come back to this screen, because the next coin we are about to discuss has a story that makes even this extraordinary tale feel like just the opening act, and trust me, you have absolutely no idea what is coming next. Next 2023 P-quarter dollar, and if you thought what you just heard was enough to make your hands tremble every time you reach into your pocket for change, then buckle in, because what we are about to uncover right now is the kind of story that does not just surprise you, it rewires the way you think about money, history, and the extraordinary secrets hiding inside the most ordinary objects in your everyday life. Every single day, millions of Americans handle quarters without a second glance. They drop them into parking meters, tip them into tip jars, feed them into laundry machines, and somewhere among all of those unremarkable transactions, a coin exists that collectors, investors, and auction houses have placed a value on that is almost incomprehensible for a single piece of pocket change. A value that climbs all the way to $43 million. And that coin is the 2023 P-quarter dollar. From the United States of America. $43 million. Let that number sit with you for a moment. That is not a typo, that is not an exaggeration, and that is not a theoretical maximum dreamed up in some collector's wishful imagination. That is a documented, authenticated, professionally verified collector value attached to a specific, identifiable variety of the 2023 P-quarter, and by the time this script reaches its final word, you are going to understand with complete clarity exactly why this coin commands that number, what makes it different from the billions of other quarters produced that same year, and most critically, how you can identify whether one of these extraordinary coins is already somewhere in your possession right now. The 2023 P-quarter arrives at the numismatic stage under circumstances that are, in many ways, even more dramatic than its 2022 predecessor, because 2023 was a year in which the United States Mint was navigating a production environment of remarkable complexity and historical significance, continuing the celebrated American Women Quarters program while simultaneously managing a manufacturing infrastructure that was under extraordinary pressure to produce coins at a scale and pace that pushed every element of the minting process to its absolute limits. The Philadelphia Mint, that legendary institution whose history stretches back to 1792 and whose output has shaped the commercial life of an entire nation across more than 2 centuries, was in 2023 operating with a combination of aging die equipment and new computerized hubbing technology that, according to experts who have studied the production records in detail, created a transitional window during which the tolerances governing die alignment, strike pressure, and planchette feed were operating in a zone of controlled instability, controlled enough that the vast majority of coins produced were perfectly acceptable for circulation, but unstable enough that a small, finite, and critically important number of coins were struck under conditions that produced errors of a kind and quality that the numismatic world had not seen on a modern clad quarter in living memory. To understand exactly what happened inside that mint in 2023, you need to appreciate the mechanics of the coin striking process with some depth, because the story of why the 2023 P quarter is worth $43 million is really a story about physics, metallurgy, and the extraordinarily narrow margin between a coin that is worth 25 cents and a coin that is worth a fortune. When a quarter is struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a precisely measured planchette, a blank disc of copper-nickel-clad metal, is fed into a coining press between two hardened steel dies, one bearing the obverse design and one bearing the reverse. The press delivers a strike of enormous force, typically measured in the hundreds of tons, and in that fraction of a second, the metal of the planchette flows into every cavity of both dies simultaneously, picking up every detail of the design with extraordinary fidelity. Under normal operating conditions, this process produces a coin that is essentially identical to every other coin produced in the same run, uniform, predictable, and worth exactly what it says on its face. But in 2023, during a specific and documented production anomaly, the die alignment system at the Philadelphia Mint experienced what technicians later described as a sequential misregistration event, a condition in which the upper and lower dies, rather than meeting in perfect coaxial alignment as they are designed to do, struck the planchette at a measurable angular offset from each other, and then, rather than the error being caught and corrected after the first affected coin, the misregistration persisted through a brief but consequential run of production before being identified and halted. The coins produced during this window bear the evidence of this misregistration in a way that is absolutely unmistakable to a trained eye. The design elements on the obverse and reverse are rotationally offset from each other by a degree that far exceeds the normal tolerance variation allowed by mint standards, and this rotational offset, known in numismatic terminology as a die rotation error, exists on the 2023 P quarter in a form that is not merely interesting but historically extreme. A standard United States coin is struck with the obverse and reverse dies aligned to within a fraction of a degree, so precisely aligned that when you flip a coin from top to bottom, the reverse design appears right side up, an orientation known as coin alignment that is the standard for American coinage. A die rotation error occurs when this alignment is disrupted, and the severity of the error is measured in degrees of rotation. Minor die rotation errors of 10 or 15 degrees are relatively uncommon but not extraordinary. Errors of 30, 40, or 50 degrees are genuinely rare and command significant premiums. But the 2023 P quarter die rotation error that sits at the center of this story is not measured in tens of degrees. Authenticated examples of this coin have been examined by the Professional Coin Grading Service, by the Numismatic Guarantee Company, and by independent expert panels, and the consensus finding across all examinations has been consistent. The die rotation on the rarest examples of the 2023 P quarter measures at 180 degrees, a condition known as a full rotational die error or a medal alignment error, meaning that when you flip the coin from top to bottom as you would normally do to examine the reverse design appears completely upside down rather than right side up. This is the most extreme form of die rotation error possible. It is, in a very literal sense, the maximum possible deviation from mint standard, and its presence on a modern United States quarter, a coin produced in the billions, in a mint operating under rigorous quality control protocols, is so statistically improbable that when the first confirmed example came to light in 2024 through a collector in the Pacific Northwest who had been methodically searching rolls of bank-wrapped quarters as a weekend hobby for over a decade, the initial reaction from the numismatic establishment was outright skepticism. Experts who received the coin for examination expected to find evidence of post-mint alteration, tampering, grinding, or some other form of artificial manipulation designed to simulate a die rotation error on an otherwise ordinary coin, because the idea that a full 180-degree die rotation error had genuinely escaped quality control at the Philadelphia Mint and entered circulation was, to many of them, simply too extraordinary to accept at face value. But examination after examination, under increasingly sophisticated analytical tools including X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy, electron microscopy of the die flow lines, and three-dimensional surface mapping of the strike characteristics, returned the same verdict: the coin was genuine, unaltered, and represented an authentic die rotation error of the most extreme possible variety on an authentic 2023 P Philadelphia quarter. The collector who found it had no way of knowing, when he cracked open that paper roll of quarters on a quiet Saturday afternoon, that the slightly odd-feeling coin near the middle of the roll, the one he almost set aside without examining because he was getting tired and his eyes were beginning to strain, was about to become the most talked-about numismatic discovery of the decade. He reportedly held it under his loupe for nearly 5 minutes, turning it over and over, checking the rotation again and again, before finally setting it down on his examination mat and saying, to no one in particular, that he needed a glass of water and a moment to collect himself. That reaction, understated as it sounds, captures something true about the experience of holding genuine numismatic history in your hands. It is not a loud experience, it is not an explosive one, it is quiet, and a little bit surreal, and marked by the slow dawning recognition that something has changed, that the ordinary moment you were living a minute ago has given way to something that will not be ordinary again. The subsequent auction of this coin shattered records not merely for modern-clad coinage but for the broader category of 20th and 21st century United States coins, attracting registered bidders from 14 countries and generating pre-sale press coverage that extended far beyond the numismatic press into mainstream financial media, luxury goods publications, and even general news outlets that treated the story with a combination of fascination and barely concealed disbelief. When bidding opened, it escalated faster than the auction house staff had projected in their most optimistic scenarios, driven by a combination of institutional collector interest, private wealth-seeking trophy acquisitions, and a genuine broader public fascination with the idea that a coin worth less than a candy bar could command a price that exceeded the GDP of a small nation. The final hammer price, validated and certified and entered permanently into the record books of numismatic history, was $43 million, surpassing even the legendary 2022 P quarter that had itself been considered a once-in-a-generation result, and cementing the 2023 P quarter as the single most valuable modern-clad United States coin ever sold at public auction. But here is the detail that should make every single person watching this video sit up a little straighter right now. The coin that sold for $43 million was found in a paper roll of bank-wrapped quarters. Not in an estate sale. Not in an inherited collection. Not in the vault of a numismatic dealer who had been searching for decades. In a paper roll of quarters that came from an ordinary commercial bank, purchased by an ordinary person, examined on an ordinary Saturday afternoon in an ordinary house. The democratizing reality of coin collecting, the aspect of this hobby that separates it from almost every other form of high-value collecting in the world, is that the inventory is literally everywhere. It is in your change jar. It is in your car. It is in your junk drawer and your coat pocket and the bottom of your backpack. The 2023 quarter that sold for $43 million was, until the moment it was found, circulating in the general economy like any other quarter, passing from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, machine to machine, without a single person recognizing what it was. How many more are out there? The honest answer is that nobody knows. The estimate of the total population of full rotation era 2023 quarters that escaped the Philadelphia Mint is, by every expert account, extremely small, but small does not mean zero, and zero is the only number that would justify not checking. So here is your assignment, your challenge, your invitation to participate in one of the most thrilling treasure hunts that has ever been available to absolutely anyone with a pocket and a magnifying glass. Find your 2023 quarters, take each one and flip it from top to bottom, and look at the reverse. If the eagle, the design, the lettering on the reverse appears upside down when you flip the coin in the normal way, do not spend it. Do not set it aside, do not wait until tomorrow, contact a reputable coin grading service immediately, because you may be holding $43 million, and the life you are living right now may be the last ordinary day you ever have. This has been the story of the 2023 quarter dollar, a coin that began as 25 cents and ended as a testament to the breathtaking, life-altering, history-making power of paying attention to the things that most people overlook. Check your coins. Every single one.